Hello, everybody.
Hello, hello.
How's your electronic device?
So Karen, how's my audio sound? I'm getting a lot of feedback
You've
when
got a
I
lag.
hear you talk, for instance.
You have a lag, and now you basically are lag.
Yeah.
You know, you're whatever that's called. Not just lag, but you also freeze.
Audio is bad here.
You look great though.
I don't know.
Although you're still frozen, so I don't know if you smiled at
What's
them.
the deal? And Jazmin has sent me.
Yeah, Melissa, I don't think it's going to work. You're just like, you may have to go back to just being a voice in the box.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're fuzzy, and then you kind of like stop for a moment.
Let me see if I can do it on my. So I tried it on my Dell computer, and
What is wrong with your computers?
I don't know. I think I think it's a Zoom connection somehow. It's just. Well,
Look pretty good now. Seems to be working, maybe.
okay. Well, we'll just keep plugging away at it. Jazmin sent me a Google file with her presentation, but I
Google Sheet.
have to have a Google account.
So do you want to send it to me so that I can, or does she not? So basically what you'll do is you'll run it through whoever is putting their screen up, and I can put is it a Google file or Google Sheet or whatever the heck, or present or whatever. Oh, you're a co-host. Congratulations.
So do we see Jazmin yet? Here we have Jazmin, I see.
Can you all hear me all right?
And yes, I can hear you. My audio might be horrible though. And I got your email with the Google slide, but I don't know quite how to open this because it's telling me I need Google, which I have. And I know, are you on your phone now? Because maybe you can.
I am on my computer. My Wi-Fi may be spotty. So is there somebody else that I can share it with that may be willing to? Karen, do you mind dropping your email in the chat?
Melissa, would you send it to me, and then I'll just put it on my screen, and then Tracy will make a co-host, and I'll share my screen while Jazmin is speaking. Although I love where you are at, Jazmin. I wish I was there. Okay, I'm going to be host. Sorry, not just co-host. I'm going to be host. We are always so good about this, aren't we, at the very last minute?
Okay, so I've sent it to you. I've emailed
Why don't you dump it in our drive?
File.
Dump it in the drive.
I forwarded you Jazmin's presentation.
Okay, you can also dump it in the drive if you wanted to. I don't have it yet. you want to dump it in our drive, Melissa? Or your,
Well, I can't do that because I've got my Zoom meeting on my work computer because
okay.
I wanted to see if the Dell was any better at it. So I don't have, I can't go, it's on
Well,
the phone.
Yeah.
Are
you sure you sent it to me, Kay Wickert? Because I haven't gotten it.
Yeah.
Okay. You must be at the end of some tether somewhere. Still haven't gotten it.
Kwiekert@gmail.
KWIECKERT@gmail. Did you spell it all right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Still haven't gotten it. Nope.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Yay!
Well, at any rate.
No, this is the database.
Lovely to have everyone here.
Nope, I didn't get it. I'm sorry. That's something else. It was somebody else.
Okay, well, I've sent it twice to you now.
Ah, perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. I got it. Thank you, Jazmin.
Okay.
All right. And I will view slideshow. And then I will, okay. So I think we can do it. Jazmin, I think what might happen is that while it's presenting, you will be discussing as it's showing, and you can do something like next, and I will go bink.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I don't know about the bink. I may not do the bink, but I will move it on. All right, Melissa, it's your turn.
Well, I was trying to shut down, see what else I could do to improve bandwidth here. I'm not sure why I have this time with Zoom, but I've tried 3 different computers and it's just an issue. So anyway, thank you all for being here today. We are Jazmin Ramirez from the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition here in Nashville is here to talk to us about DACA, and that's the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. It's an immigration policy that has gone back and forth in the courts for close to 10 years now, and still in kind of a limbo status that makes it very difficult for those who have DACA status, as well as those who may apply for it, to be able to do any kind of planning or live with a sense of security. So she is going to talk to us about the current status. We'll have time for questions at the end. I will monitor the chat. And so if you want to type your questions in there, that's fine. Otherwise, you can raise your hand or take yourself off mute and ask away. We also want to remind people, Karen, if you can tell us what we'll be looking forward to for our December hot topic, that would be great. And then we'll turn it over to Jazmin.
Perfect. On December 2nd, we will be having a panel with 2 people to discuss homelessness in Davidson County. Lindsay Crinks, who's the director of the Education and Advocacy Program for Open Table Nashville, will give an overview of the situation in our area and how her organization addresses the issue. Open Table is a nonprofit interfaith community that works to disrupt the cycle of poverty and deal with homelessness. She will be joined by Allie Rutland, who's a community coordinator for the Village at Glencliff, which is a group, is a housing area that provides a bridge housing for folks who are experiencing homelessness in Asheville. She's going to discuss their program because it does a number of things, connects people to a number of different things, as well as providing a safe place for those who are finding themselves without homes. And just to remind you, in January, we will be hearing from our lovely, wonderful legislative lobbying Human, Stuart Lifton, and he will provide a background on the upcoming Tennessee legislative session. And I also expect, for those of you interested, the legislative committee will be probably starting either late this year or early in the year, and there's nothing better than listening to what we are going to try to attempt to support in this area or in the legislative session for in Tennessee. So feel free to hang out afterwards if you want and ask any questions. I can leave if there's any interest or any discussions. But for now, what I'm going to do is I am going to stop talking, which is unusual, I know. And then I'm going to start my screen, share it, and Jazmin will talk and tell me when to move on. So Jazmin, I can't wait.
Thank you, Jazmin. And if you can introduce yourself just a little bit about your background and your role at Turk, we would love to know that.
Well, thank you, everyone. And if at any point you guys can't hear, just let me know in the chat. I'm currently at a school watching some students and doing this, so give me some grace too. But I'm Jazmin Ramirez. I am one of the community organizers at Turk. For those of you who aren't familiar with Turk, we're a nonprofit organization based in Nashville, but we work across the state. And if you can hit this next slide. But Turk has been around for the last 20 years in the state of Tennessee, and we really were born out of the need to have an organization that did advocacy and policy work in immigrant and refugee communities. So out of that, we have been able to provide legal services, specifically in the immigration world, naturalization classes, English classes. We have different groups that meet on a regular basis. We have one of the largest domestic workers network with over 1,000 people, and our youth base is over 2,500, and that is anywhere from high school students all the way up to college and college graduate students that we still consider very much youth members. And that is some of the work that we do. A lot of the work that we do is specifically focused around the state legislature. Every year we are fighting anti-immigrant bills, and on a very rare occasion, we introduce positive legislation. We've been trying to get in-state tuition for undocumented students for the last 10 years. And this year alone, we were able to pass a professional and commercial license bill that would benefit DACA recipients and anybody with an eligible work permit to be able to practice in their chosen field. Whenever you are ready, you can hit the next slide. All right, that's more of the work that we do. Next slide. All righty, so to talk about what we're really here to learn about DACA. So as many of you know, DACA was issued under an executive order in 2012, and it was a relief for certain young immigrants that had been raised here, but didn't have a pathway to citizenship. So President Obama issued this in June 15, 2012, and the DACA program came to existence, giving students or young immigrants work permit for every 2 years and temporary relief from deportation. DACA does need to be renewed every 2 years, and it does not provide a pathway to citizenship on its own. And you can stay on this slide, it's fine. For DACA, we have been fighting sort of on the front line since 2017 to defend the program. In 2017, President Trump at that time was already on the campaign trail saying that he was going to terminate the DACA program. And that is exactly what he did in 2017. And there was also this lawsuit pertaining to 10 states threatening the Trump administration that if he did not end DACA, then they would sue to end DACA. And at that time, Tennessee was one of those states that signed on to this lawsuit, but we realized very quickly that that did not reflect who we were as a state. So we organized, youth members met with the Attorney General at that time, rallied, marched, and a few months later, we were able to take the state of Tennessee out of that lawsuit, and we became the only state to be able to do that. And all the other states were like, we can't believe that you guys were able to do that. You guys are a southern state, a red state at that. But the Attorney General really pointed that it was the stories and the impact that it would have on Tennessee residents to be part of this lawsuit. He talked about how hearing the stories from directly impacted people really motivated him to change his mind. So that's sort of where DACA starts. And then September, President Trump ends DACA completely, and that includes first-time applications and even DACA renewals. And we were without DACA until 2018, and over that course, thousands of people lost their DACA status. If you can go to the next slide. And then between 2018 to 2020, there's a lot of things that happened in the courts, but I don't want to stick to those. I'm going to stick to the bigger cases, but there's sort of 2 years where they went back court and court until we got to the Supreme Court. So in the summer of 2020, we were preparing for a decision from the Supreme Court to one, terminate DACA or agree that DACA, that the way that the president terminated DACA in 2017 was unlawful. The Supreme Court did not look at the legality of the program. It only looked at the way that the Trump administration had terminated the program. We were prepared to lose at the Supreme Court, and by our surprise, we won at the Supreme Court. And one of my favorite memories of being at the Supreme Court when the oral arguments happened was that we had members inside, and they shared that they could hear all of our chants and all of our energy inside the chamber while we were outside. And that was just incredible to hear from our members. And then we know that in the fall of 2020, the Department of Homeland Security refused to start processing first-time DACA applications. And in December, DACA finally gets reinstated as we knew it in 2012. And this is the first time in 4 years that first-time DACA applications started being accepted in December of 2020. If you want to go to the next one. Perfect, thank you. There we go. So in June, so we were able to only submit first-time DACA applications for a very small window of 7 months. And in that period, we were able to submit 80,000 first-time DACA applications as a country. I don't have the exact numbers for Tennessee, but this was sort of the first time. And what we realized when we were doing first-time DACA applications is that students or young immigrants now had to prove that they had been living in the country for 14 years. And for some of them, they were babies when they got here, and it was really hard to prove that they had existed in the country until they were in kindergarten. So we had to figure out how to get creative with the type of evidence that we were submitting to the Department of Homeland Security, and it just made it that much harder for some students to be able to prove that they met the qualifications of entering before June 2007. So in July, Judge Haynen from Texas issued a block on DACA saying that the program was illegal. This is also the same case that started in 2017 that Tennessee was a part of, that didn't move until last year. It waited 5 years to move We don't understand why, but they waited that long to move and attempt to kill the program. And they did that successfully, blocking first-time DACA recipients from being able to be processed. So all those 80,000 first-time applications that were submitted, they are in this forever hold until the courts figure it out. And those include students that are graduating high school, that are wanting to access higher education, wanting to access a job, wanting to access a driver's license, but because their application is currently on hold, they're not able to do so. And then we go again back into courts, back and forth, multiple courts, multiple hearings. If you can go to the next one. And this year, we were expecting a big ruling from the Fifth Circuit. And we knew that the Fifth Circuit was a very dangerous court for the DACA program, as it was the same court that killed a similar program for parents in 2016. So the Fifth Circuit ruled against the DACA program and said and agreed with the Texas decision that DACA was illegal or unconstitutional. But it sent it back to the lower court in Texas for Judge Haynen to review again this new rule that came out by the Biden administration, pretty much copycatting the DACA program. It doesn't change the program, but that in itself, Judge Haynen has already said that it mirrors DACA 2012 and has placed another injunction on that. So first-time DACA applications continue to be on hold. They're able to apply, but they're not going to be processed, which is insane. And DACA recipients can continue to renew for the time being. We do expect that Judge Haynen in the next year will strike down the DACA program, and the only way for a permanent solution is through Congress and for them to pass something to protect undocumented students and all the 11 million of undocumented people in this country. I will stop there. I know I just shared a lot of information specifically on DACA, and I was telling Melissa that I wanted it to be a very visual thing because it has been really hard to keep up with everything that DACA has been through in the last couple of years. But I'll open it up for questions, and then we can talk about how you guys can get involved and stay plugged in with DACA and CHIP.
Okay, so this is Melissa. I have a question about, so we've got the 80,000 plus across the US who submitted applications, but they can't be ruled on because of the lawsuit that's been going on for years and years and years. What would be the best case scenario when that happens, when a ruling is made that would be favorable? Like they get to have those documents reviewed, their application reviewed, and then they get granted the 2-year status and apply again? Is that the way it would work if it comes out well?
Yes. In the best case scenario, that is where they fully reinstate DACA and first-time DACA applications are being processed and approved. On the semi-worst case scenario is that they only keep it open to DACA recipients. We know that this program has been alive for 10 years, and we know the impact that it has had in our communities for those who currently hold DACA. So that is another scenario, that they only keep it for those who currently have DACA. And then the worst case scenario is that they kill the program completely for everyone, including those that have DACA currently.
Okay. And how many people do you know in Tennessee and in the US who were successful with obtaining the DACA permits?
Yeah, right now in the state of Tennessee, we have a little over 7,000 active DACA recipients, and we have 11,000 eligible DACA recipients. So those people who would be able to apply for the first time.
Ah. Okay, who else has a question? Anyone?
I have a question, Jazmin. What has the state of Tennessee provided all of the services that for DACA people, whether they're, continuing in this program or not, or did they stop services? Did they, can you tell me a little bit about how Tennessee specifically treats folk who are DACA?
Yeah, so DACA is run under the federal bracket of Homeland Security. So Tennessee doesn't necessarily have a say or do in whether people get granted DACA or not. It's more around sort of the eligibility of the person applying for DACA, and those requirements are that you have been in the United States and have resided in the United States since June 15, 2007. Were physically present in the United States on June 15, 2012, when the DACA announcement happened, have graduated high school, are currently in school, or have some sort of GED, no criminal record, be of good moral character, so be somebody in the community who is productive. And then there's one more, and I can't remember, but there's 7 requirements. But you have to prove your existence since you first entered the country. So in my case, when I applied for DACA for the first time, I only had to prove 7 years, because that's how long it had been that I had sort of had to prove. But for students that I helped this past year apply for DACA, we were looking for 14 years of proof. And that meant that we couldn't have a gap bigger than 2 months. So for many of us, we don't have documents, even like in general, like how many of us could actually prove that we have documents enough for 15, 20 years of being in the country that don't have a gap bigger than 2 to 3 months.
So if you have DACA status, has Tennessee agreed to keep all the services that a normal citizen, so to speak, I hate to use the term normal, but a Tennessee citizen would get? That's what I was wondering about.
So DACA recipients are eligible to get a driver's license, but that's about it. There's no public benefits, licensure. So for those DACA recipients that were graduating college, wanting to become nurses, teachers, until this year, the state of Tennessee has blocked DACA recipients from being able to access those licenses. And through the work that we did this year, we were able to change the law. And now DACA recipients and anybody else with a work permit is able to access their chosen careers. And that, again, was through the advocacy and the work that our youth members did in the state. And that was incredible. But outside of that, we still don't have in-state tuition. Even for DACA recipients, still have to pay out-of-state tuition.
Yeah. So, Jazmin, what about things like, I think that's one of the things that people don't have a lot of knowledge about, and so it creates a negative stereotype around this. But for people with DACA who now, are kind of an independent age, say over the age of 18, perhaps, as far as I understand, because of the citizenship status, people who hold DACA, cards or permitting or status aren't eligible for things like Section 8 housing or food stamp benefits or things like that citizens, according to their income, otherwise would be allowed to apply for. And, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what it means for having the DACA status. Like that, the only thing really that you get out of it, well, the only thing, a very big thing, is the stay on deportation, but also the ability to have a work permit. So there's nothing else that, it's not as if anybody is losing anything because they, claim that DACA people are getting, our tax dollars, which is a frequent kind of complaint. Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, that's, I think you explained it perfectly. DACA recipients aren't eligible to apply for any public benefit, including tent care, Medicaid. All of that would have to be provided to an employer if they have an employer that offers healthcare benefits, Section 8, food stamps, all of that. We are not eligible for those.
But I think also one of the things that Tennessee has also decided not to provide are educational benefits, as you pointed out, Jazmin, which is that you can go to community college free if you're involved in Tennessee mentoring, whatever it's called, but DACA recipients are not, or DACA recipients are not allowed. And also you pay, if you do get in, you pay out of state tuition to all of the Tennessee higher education. So, and presumably other programs as well that the state provides. So the other states have provided DACA recipients with educational benefits in particular, as if they were just regular old people who in the state, but Tennessee has not done that. Although I am very glad to hear about the work permit. Although let me just say, if you have a work permit, it does, well, regardless of, you're paying taxes. You're paying taxes also by buying things. So you're actually not getting, you're not only not getting anything from the state, you're giving to everyone else in the state, but not getting what everyone else would get. So it seemed a little unfair to me.
Yeah, DACA recipients and undocumented students can access in-state tuition, Tennessee Promise, Hope Scholarship, or any financial aid that is either at the state or federal level.
So basically right now then, we are waiting for, what's the next step? I see the last entry is October 5th. It gets sent back to Texas. Is that their Supreme, is that a court? Is that their Supreme Court? Is it Texas will make the decision that impacts the rest of the country?
Yes. So Texas, the Southern District Court of Texas will get to decide for the whole country what happens to LatinX. And he has already issued a preliminary injunction saying that this new DACA rule is illegal. And he is expected to issue a final ruling next year. And we are pretty confident that he will issue the same ruling that he issued last year, saying that DACA is unconstitutional. And from there, it is likely to go back to the Fifth Circuit, and from the Fifth Circuit back to the Supreme Court. So we still have a long way of battling. And where the Supreme Court currently stands, we don't think that we would have a chance to defend DACA there.
Mm. Boy, what a precarious position to be in, with not being able to plan any sort of future resolution. It really, so in a broader sense, Jazmin, what else is on the front burner of immigration policy in Congress and the Senate? Is there anything, any of the pathways to citizenship? Is there anything viable out there that, is still being contemplated? Or is DACA really kind of the focus area, and we won't see much action on any other type of immigration policy?
Yeah, front end of Congress, there's been several bills over the last year that have been introduced and made it, and either one or both of the chambers have blocked it from getting to the floor vote. So there are things that are in existence. It is said that it is unlikely that over the next decade we will have any sort of real relief for undocumented students or undocumented immigrants, including DACA recipients. So we could still, yeah, we're far from it in these elections. We'll stay true to that. We'll predict sort of how the next couple of years are forth. But yeah, rumor on the street is that it will be another decade before we have any real action on any immigration policy.
Yeah.
So I have a question. I mean, this is kind of given what you just said, which by the way is depressing as all get out. Is there a way to, here's a completely off the wall idea, which is refugee status is different than immigration, being an immigrant or emigration or whatever. So given in some ways being left in the middle of nowhere with no possibilities, seems like you're kind of, is there a way to like kind of get under the way and say, well, these are all refugees, right? In other words, just take all DACA people and redefine them as refugees, because we have actually created a refugee group through our legislative processes, and then just, be done with it. And DACA, I can't, given what you just said, it means 10 more years of just like nibbling around at the edges and waiting for Fifth Circuit people in, et cetera. So is that nuts, Jazmin?
Nuts, yes. Is it impossible? No. The Biden administration has the power to issue a new program, issue a new TPS, issue a new parole that would cover all of this. But we have seen him not take any action on anything related to this. We see that TPS for people who have had TPS for the last 30, 40 years are currently also sort of hanging by a thread as that is also being attacked. So we could see another wave of similar DACA programs for people who've had for 30 years also be sort of at risk of deportation if that program gets canceled. Again, the only real solution is a pathway to citizenship that is passed through Congress. If not, we will continue to see this type of program that is only a temporary solution, only a temporary fix. And DACA, like, even though it's been alive for 10 years, people have had to renew every 2 years, and that's not a cheap thing to do. Renewals cost $495, which is the fee that you pay to USCIS, plus whatever your attorney charges if you go through an attorney. And I have heard attorneys that have charged up to $3,000 for a DACA renewal. So that's almost $4,000 for a renewal every 2 years. That is incredibly hard on DACA recipients, and just a constant attack of not being able to plan life past your 2 years, or whether they will approve your renewal or not, is not something that anybody should have to be living with.
So what happens if your renewal status, like it lapses, like you're not able to secure the funds to reapply? Then what happens to you?
Then you have, if your DACA expires, you have a 1 year limit to still submit as a renewal. If it's past that 365 days, you can still submit, but you would be considered a first-time DACA application. Even though you've had DACA for the last 10 years, if you sort of lapsed for over a year, you will be considered a first-time DACA and will have to submit every single proof that you did the first time. And you become undocumented.
Yeah, and then you don't even have because they're not processing first-time applicants, correct?
That is
They're
correct.
taking the applications, but they're not actually granting the status, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Seems almost like extortion. So here's another thing that I've been thinking about, and you know, it seems like for today's episode of Hot Topics, Karen and I are very interested in this. I hope others have questions that we'll get to before we leave today. But so people who arrived here as children, um, if in the worst case scenario they are deported to their country of origin, what is their how do they prove that? How do they prove their citizenship to the country that they left behind as an infant, perhaps? Are they, is it essential? It seems like you're in a limbo in any country, because you can't, I don't know how you prove citizenship to, say, Guatemala, if you've been in Tennessee for 14 years.
Yeah, so many other countries are similar to the United States, that you are a citizen of that country by birth. So with your birth certificate, you would be able to sort of prove your citizenship, being like citizen of that country. It would be very difficult for these individuals to return to a country that they have not known, to acclimate to the culture, the environment, and figure out, like learn a whole new system of how government works, how to apply for a job in a foreign country that you have not known. So it's really a lot of that, more than proving that they were born in that country. It's more of like, how do you adjust after living away for 20 years?
Yeah.
And sometimes not knowing the language.
Right. Because I think for many people, young people especially, of course, they're exposed to English in the schools and taught, English as a study, to be, grammar and those types of things. And so they might, it's very likely that you could miss out on, say, for instance, Spanish grammar, so you're not skilled in what might be, considered the native tongue, the first language, if you were deported back to Guatemala, for instance. So it's a very troubling. I'm surprised. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Melissa.
Oh, I was just going to, express my, it is very depressing to think about how this just goes on and on and on and on with absolutely no, movement by either party to establish what is an issue that is here to stay. Right. We're never going to get away from this being an issue, no matter what we have in place. That immigration movements, as the world changes, it's not a one and done kind of thing. And yet for the last, in my lifetime, I don't think, there hasn't really been any significant immigration policy since maybe the removal of, ethnic, country quotas back in the 60s, I think.
Ronald Reagan had an amnesty program. But I have a question, Jazmin, and that is, so the Tennessee Immigrant Center, Turk, has a program, I'm assuming, that that requires funds to ensure or to help folks keep up with their DACA status, for example. So do you have programs that you can support for, making sure that I'm assuming there are, if nothing else, given in this age of digital, whatever it is, there must be apps for that to remind you to send in your DACA thing or whatever. That I'm not sure, but such programs, it would be useful to know for the purposes of giving resources, if nothing else, to programs that are helping current people keep up to ensure that they don't fall behind and get into that undocumented status. that's the first thing. The second thing is, I do know that every once in a while I've run into programs in which folk have been removed from the United States, sent back to countries of they have virtually no connection to, but there are turns out there are companies that are using folk like that or employing folk like that in a fairly substantial way because of their ability at English, and in particular in the world that I have had some experience with, call centers and things like that, which isn't the nicest thing in the world. But the other thing is to find out, are such programs also extant that as stopgaps, it's almost also a stopgap, right? It's kind of dealing with, well, if you're going to get if you're going to be sent back or sent to a place that you've never been to, are there ways of supporting the catchment on that side, right? Or is that just a decision that no one wants? And understandably, if no one wants to support that kind of on the other end, so to speak, because the fight is here, which totally get that the fight should be here, not trying to help catch on the other end. Horrible terms, but I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, so there are several ways for DACA recipients to be reminded of when their expiration date is sort of coming up. One, we do a lot of community outreach. There are platforms online that you can check your expiration date, and it gives you a time frame on when you should be renewing. Cost-wise, there's not a lot of funding available to help with renewals, and that's oftentimes the issue with DACA recipients, that they just don't have the funds to send their renewal. So they let it lapse until they have enough funds to submit it again. So that's sort of where the biggest need and support is, just funding DACA scholarships per se. And then I saw in the chat, and I think it ties into your sort of question, I haven't seen any actual initiatives from other countries to help or assist returnees. The only initiative that I've seen is out of Mexico, and it's been out of young people that were deported back to Mexico that have attempted to set up a system of support for those that are deported or are being sent back. But that is the only sort of initiative that I have seen online. I haven't seen anything from any other country.
Thanks.
Jazmin, before we go, do you have anything you could share with us about green card renewals? Has that process been disrupted in any way? Is that still working as intended for people who have met the requirements to become citizens? I know that kind of the last time I looked at this, the price of the application had gone up and several $100s, as I recall, and that was also under the last administration. I think was a kind of a way to throttle the process for a lot of people. Do you have, I know this maybe is not your portfolio, but can you talk to us about the green card program at all?
Yeah, so for those who already have green cards or are becoming naturalized, prices did hike, I believe, at the end of last year. It is expected that they are going to attempt to hike them up again sometime in the next couple of months. So we will see another sort of price increase attempt with a comment period for people to comment on why they should not hike up those prices. There was a really long backlog during COVID and after COVID on applications. We were seeing some of these applications taking 1 to 2 years to be approved. That at least in Tennessee, the trend has been for those who are applying for citizenship, we're getting citizenship interviews within a 6-month period, which is incredible. Again, like this is only very much what we have seen in our office. We know that some of our national partners are still seeing the 9 to 12 month wait. That is not true to what we're seeing inside of our offices. And that's the same for a green card. We've seen the green card renewal be processed a lot faster than before.
Great. Well, that's some good news, I guess. And it is a public comment period on the at the federal level on the application fee increase.
Yes, once that is released, there will be a 60-day window to make public comments on that.
Okay, great. Well, so in our final minutes, maybe you can tell us some actions that individuals could take if they wanted to either learn more or support efforts or become involved with DACA relief. Or what do you suggest? Like, what would be the most helpful to advocates like yourself?
Yeah, I think one is keeping, again, the pressure up with your elected officials at federal and state level. Keep reminding them that this is important, that they do need to take action, whether they take action or not. That is very much not something that Tennessee electeds have done, but it's still super important to keep reminding them that this is important and that people outside of the DACA world care about this issue too. Secondly, we are about to be in legislative session in the spring. And we know that the state of Tennessee loves to bring anti-immigrant legislation. So we are expected to see several horrible bills. Last year, if you weren't aware, last year they introduced one to deny K-12 access to undocumented students in the state of Tennessee in an attempt to eventually overthrow a Supreme Court decision. We are expected to see several more like that this year. We are going to be pushing for in-state tuition, and that is a fight that we haven't won in 10 years. In 2015, we came one vote shy from making that a reality, but we do need that support, talking to elected officials about why access to in-state tuition, not only for DACA recipients, but for undocumented students, it's important. So those are 3 very much concrete ways that you guys can stay plugged in, subscribe to our newsletter to be able to do that.
Great. Well, we'll include some of those links in our follow-up article for this that goes out to League of Women Voters Nashville mailing list. We can share this with our state organization as well. Okay, so we have about 7,000 people in Tennessee. Do you have any idea about where the vast majority of recipients are? Or is it like Nashville Metro? Is it Memphis? Is it,
Yeah, so Nashville, Murfreesboro, that area pocket has about 3,000. Then Memphis has about 2,000, and then all the other 3,000 are everywhere else in the state. But yeah. Nashville has the biggest pocket.
Okay. So, and would you say that, I think that people would tend to think that this is solely an issue for, Central American, Mexican immigration. This really is eligible for anyone who arrives without, through the channels that immigrant can use legally. So it's not just we'll use the term, Hispanic issue. It could be a variety of nations of origin.
Yeah, the largest second population of DACA recipients are Asian Pacific Islanders from Asian countries.
Huh.
So a lot of Koreans, Chinese, those countries have a huge population of DACA recipients.
Interesting. So does anyone else have a question for Jazmin? I think it's been a very informative afternoon. I appreciate your taking the time to come and meet with us. It's with so many issues, particularly for our members who follow a lot of causes. It's hard to keep up with everything, and that's why we hold these monthly hot topics, is so that we can kind of get updated on the different things that we are very interested in, and perhaps can influence through our own personal actions or advocacy with the legislature. It always helps to know a little bit more about the world around us and the impact, disparate impact that a lot of public policy currently has on people. So I appreciate you coming and updating us on this. And in the chat, we have the link to the DACA information on the Turk website. And if you go there right now, easily enough, by clicking on the link, you could also troll around that site and find where you can sign up for their newsletter. So I encourage you to do that.
And you can get merch.
Yes. Yeah. And they have lots of great things happening at Turk. There's always the International Food Crawl, Food Festival. That is a great opportunity. Casa Azafran is a facility. I don't know if you've been over there lately, but they've got a lot going on in that. Talk about a dream that came to fruition with the building of that community center and all of the nonprofits that have space there now, and the amazing things that they're doing for the immigrant and refugee community in Middle Tennessee. So I urge you to check that out.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you. Very informative.
Very
Enjoy
helpful.
the weekend,
Thank you.
everyone.
So if there's anything that anybody needs or has a question about outside of the topic, now's your time. Okay.
Karen, I actually would like to ask, is Doug Weichert a relative of yours? Do you know Doug Weichert?
I know, he's the guy who does hands and such. No, he is not. And actually, I didn't change my name, so I'm actually, my father and my grandfather and my great-grandfather and whatever are all, I mean, the Wickerts, but
Oh.
I appreciate that though. And I always want to. I am a doctor also. Every once in a while they'll ask me, they'll send me something. It's like, well, Dr. Wickert, you want to fix something? No, I'm not that kind of doctor. You don't want me to fix anything.
You said or anything else, so I thought I would ask.
On a finger, and that's about it.
Okay, thanks. You said anything else, I thought I would ask.
I appreciate it, Linda.
Okay, thank you. It's been very informative.
Thank you so much for coming.
That's great. So I don't know, Karen, maybe I need to just get a whole brand new computer. I think, the one that I've got is about 6 years old, and, it was planned for obsolescence about 4 years ago. It seemed like it improved when I turned off my camera. So it's